Welcome back to our first century, where we share the stories of the legacy of T.A. Loving Company.
I'm Ty Edmondson, CEO of T.A. Loving Company. Welcome.
And I'm Krista Davenport, Vice President of People and Culture. In today's episode, we literally dive underground to explore pipes, sewers, and civil infrastructure systems that support our communities every day, but also often go unnoticed.
In this episode, we're talking to four of our leaders in our Conveyance group. We've got Jason Hill, Bill Bissette, Adam Collins, and Antonio Sutton that will be discussing their jobs and all the things that they do on a regular basis.
Before we get started, we'd like to hear from you. If you have questions you would like us to answer in an upcoming episode, please email us at podcast@taloving.com. This is episode 7, Civil Strength, Part 1. Let's dive in. Jason, can you walk us through what Civil Conveyance Systems does and what your role looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. Civil Conveyance Systems focuses on the installation of water, sewer, and stormwater projects. We also specialize in precast pump stations and vaults, primarily for municipal owners. My role as president is to basically work with our leadership team, and we develop strategies, both short-term and long-term, for the business unit. I work with our group to assess our capabilities and then target work that is enticing to us in the right geographical area, and also the delivery method by which the contract is going to be administered.
You've recently grown your leadership team. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So yes, we've started working with a strategic planning group and put together a leadership team within the Conveyance Systems group that includes general superintendent, senior project managers, our branch managers, and our lead estimator.
And how do you feel that has helped you over the last few months in your role?
I've been able to pass along a couple of my responsibilities onto them, and enjoyed some of the feedback that I get from those guys. And it's been a positive experience thus far.
Okay. So, Bill, let's hear from you. You've been with T.A. Loving Company since 1983. Tell us what first brought you here and what's made you stay.
Krista, my father, he worked with T.A. Loving for 40 plus years. And when I was just a young guy, he would bring me to the shop there on William Street, and I got to know all the mechanics. It was just a really good experience. My father always enjoyed working with T.A. Loving. You could tell he was very proud. When I started working, it was like, at the time, it was very family oriented. There was a lot of father-son combinations, and it was just, not to sound cliche, but it was like working with a family. Mm-hmm. It was a very good experience. I've always felt secure with T.A. Loving for myself and for my family.
It's interesting because we did a podcast not long ago, and it was Family Matters, and it was talking about what you were just describing. You did a wonderful job of describing how this company is made up of a lot of families that many generations. So yeah. That's a great example of how family does matter.
I think there's one guy, Brandon Chase, he's like 5th generation working now.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you know the history of what position your dad started in here and how his career moved forward?
He started more as in the surveying field.
Okay.
He actually worked, him and David Pittman worked together a lot, and worked himself up to project manager, and he just enjoyed working here. He really did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bill, you've been here, you're like me, you've been here a long time. What's been the biggest change you've seen in the way we take care of business from how we actually put the work in place?
I think that as far as the materials, they're like they're more specific and harder to get. It's a longer lead time. The company now, I know with more jobs that, we're bigger with more jobs, that we are better at cutting cost on all the jobs. It's far more so than before, I think.
What about with equipment? Have you seen a lot of difference in the equipment, how efficient it is, or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's nothing breaks down. It's all this computerized is really great. It's just you can do a lot more work with what we've got.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I want to ask both of you a question because you've both been here for quite some time. What's the most memorable project you've worked on, and what makes that project stand out?
Well, I think, to me, Carolina Beach Utilities, I think it was back in 2018. It was a very successful job, which, was always great. And I really got to give a shout out to Jason, because he was very passionate about implementing a 2-week look ahead schedule. He enforced it. The guys, they understood and they bought into it, and it just made the job go so good. And then as far as, he even had like a little, when they made the production, when they made their production, then they were rewarded with lunch at a specific Mexican restaurant in town, and it just brought them all together. The camaraderie was just off the charts. It really was good.
Having a clearly defined goal is really important in terms of getting everyone on the same page and then measuring success. And so having that goal, making sure everybody understood it, everybody was in agreement with it, does bring people together because you're all working together towards the same outcome.
Right.
How about you, Jason?
Well, thank you for saying that, Bill. Carolina Beach was not Bill and I's first job together. We had an experience in a couple of other places first, and that's where my most memorable experience was probably going to come from. One of my first jobs was in Wilmington, and it was an extremely challenging project. Not all of our jobs are as successful as others, but I will tell you that this one I've probably learned more lessons on than I have at any other project that we've done. So some of the things that we implemented in Carolina Beach were directly attributed to challenges that we faced, and we had to come up with ways to overcome on the Northeast Interceptor in Wilmington, to Marquee Hills, to Heritage Park, a number of jobs that we did together. And then we got it all put together in Carolina Beach, and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
It's interesting because all the jobs y'all have mentioned, I mean, what we do is extremely difficult work.
Yeah.
And it is it is difficult. It's in extreme conditions, and it's a lot of things we build in this company. You can see when you walk away, you can really look at it and see something. A lot of the projects we do in the conveyance, you may see a manhole ring and cover, but that's about the extent of it. Right. But it is so incredible how important what we do to facilitate the growth in this area, and how important it is for what we do on a regular basis. It's neat when you really stand back and see all that work going in place. We talk about how difficult the work is, and actually putting something in the ground when it's in the conditions we work in. But talk a little bit about the other things we face that are difficult when we're doing the jobs we do. You've got constraints with the traffic control. You've got to maintain. We're typically working around people's houses, and in different neighborhoods. We've got to maintain, a safety component to everything we do. We've got to worry about the population that lives there. So maybe talk about how all that works.
Yeah, sure. So to ensure the success of a project to all its stakeholders, whether that be the owner, the engineer, the general public, ourselves. We put a tremendous amount of effort into pre-planning all of our work, whether that's the daily task. It could be the 2-week look ahead, as Bill mentioned. It could be a 2-month look ahead. We know that some of our work could be a short-term inconvenience for the traveling public, whether that be pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic. And when we identify areas like that, we really focus on the routes they're taking, the times that they take those routes, because we want to coordinate our work to have the least amount of negative effect on the traveling public as possible. Long term, it will benefit the traveling public, but everyone has somewhere to be, and we don't want to hold them up any longer than what we have to.
You just talked about the traveling public and that work. I want to talk about underground and digging, because you do a lot of digging, as Ty mentioned before, and you find a lot of interesting things when you're digging. So I want to ask both of you, what's the most interesting thing that you found, and what was the story behind it?
One of the Front Street jobs that we had in downtown Wilmington, this was back in 2010. One of the electricians that was our sub, he found a penny that was early 1800s. And the penny, what was unusual about it, it was like at least 2 inches in diameter.
Wow.
So, and we looked it up, and sure enough, it was early 1800s. Also, another time, well, the same job, they were finding old bottles. I myself found a couple of old ginger beer bottles, and they were late 1800s. So in Wilmington, there's a lot of history there, and a lot of stuff under those trees.
So what happened with the penny and the bottles? Where did they end up?
The bottles, I gave the bottles away. They really wasn't worth much. It was a good conversation piece, though. The penny, one of the inspectors on the job offered the guy as soon as he found it, he offered him like $1,000.
Wow.
But the guy didn't know what it was worth, so he turned him down. A few days later, the inspector came back and gave him $500 for it, because it won't as expensive as what the inspector had originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah.
How about you, Jason?
So unfortunately, we don't have X-ray vision. I'll say that, but we have invested in a number of technologies to give us a clearer picture of what's under the ground than what the plans can provide. But just with the nature of our work, we're going to be surprised or make discoveries, as you say, as we're digging. A couple of things that come to my mind. This was a project actually in Wilmington too. We were replacing the water system down there, and we uncovered a valve that was from like 1900, I believe is what it was. That valve was still in service. It was still operating. But because the project was to upgrade the system, it did come out. I believe it went to the Cape Fear Museum, if I'm not mistaken, and it's being displayed there. In Carolina Beach, we were doing a storm drain project and uncovered a wooden junction box. And that's the only wooden junction box I've ever seen. But we dig all over the state. We find bottles, we find different artifacts. And so it's all pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You talk about the systems we install will be in place for many, many years.
Yeah.
Just like the systems that were put in place back when they
Over
put a
100
wooden
years in
junction
service.
box,
Yeah.
and it's still functioning, and we rely on it every day.
Yep.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting when you think about it. What about, a lot of the things we do requires some creativity, and we have to figure out how to do the things we do a lot of times. It's not as simple as just going out there and it's not very straightforward at times. So any examples about how we had to be creative in building a job?
The same job I talked about earlier in 2010, we had to go along 2 blocks on Front Street in the historic downtown district of Wilmington. And one of the issues it was a restoration project, so we had to replace stormwater, sewer, water lines, and to do that, we had to take the street up and take the sidewalk up, and then all that would get restored. But anyway, we had to figure out how to, when the time came to take the sidewalk up, how to get the employees and the customers from the business entrance over to the street. And it also to keep them from tripping over a curb that they would have to cross over. So we had these long ramps that would reach from the entrance to the street, fabricated. They had rails on them, and they had a little flap on the end that would drop down below the curb so the people could just walk up from the street right into the businesses. And this is while the sidewalk was being demoed and poured back. So,
Yeah, that's a great example.
and in 2023, those same type ramps were used again they extended 2 more blocks of Front Street, and those ramps were used again. So that was one less problem we had to worry about on that job.
Yeah,
So
we had a proven solution.
that's right.
Yeah, that's a good example. Anything, Jason, you can think of?
I mean, those ramps too have been used for other purposes too. When we have to cross from the ground to an excavation over a hole, that we use those for the same thing. So it's they've had a lot of purposes over their history. As far as creativity, I mean, we do all kinds of crazy jobs. Going through swamps comes to mind. Building a road through a swamp is for heavy equipment is not the easiest thing in the world to do, especially when you've got to take stone and materials and everything in and out over and over again. So we've gotten all kinds of creative ways where we've had to, when we go and cut down the trees, we can build a road out of the logs that we've cut down. We have all sorts of crane mats and engineered plastic mats with the interlocking system that we use. So it's just things that you don't necessarily think about when you're driving down the road and look over there and know that there's pipe going through a swamp, or don't know it's there, but accessing some of the areas that we go into, it can be quite challenging at times.
Yeah, it's very complex what we do.
You're
Exactly right. You know, you all touched on it. The amount of planning for safety that goes into everything we do, and we touched on that. And you all gave good examples of how we have to ensure the safety of the public that we're working around all the time. But we're also building our safety program into what we do to keep our employees safe. So it is really a big part of what we do on a regular basis.
I want to explore that topic of safety just a little bit further, because a lot of the work that you do has consistent repetition. How do you understand that people are experienced and knowledgeable in the repetition of this work and still keep everyone keenly focused on safety as a top priority?
So while there is repetition in the work that we do, each site offers its own unique challenges, right? So while yes, confined space is confined space, the method in which we install a trench box could change depending on the conditions. Are you in the mud? Are you in the clay? Are you in the sand? So we have safety talks, weekly safety talks, based off of the situations that we're in on that project. So it could be a confined space and how to install your trench box because we're in Wilmington in the sand. It could be blasting rock in Raleigh and how to set up to do that. And we tailor it to our safety program, a site-specific safety plan to the project that we're on, and try to keep those topics relevant and in those project teams' minds while they're conducting that work.
Mm-hmm. You just talked about changing conditions, and you mentioned sand. You have a lot of different conditions, different types of ground that you're working in. What's your least favorite? What's your most favorite, and why?
That's easy.
Yeah.
Running sand in Wilmington, the coastal areas, anytime it's really wet, it's hard to drain. It's hard to what we call well point. The best would be like a clay material, nice and dry, just so much easier to work with.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
I have to agree with Bill. I came up with Bill in Wilmington, so we have the same opinions on many different things. But our specialty, I will say, is how to deal with those wet conditions, and we may prefer that over the rock. That some folks might like the rock instead of the wet conditions.
Mm-hmm. True.
Let's go back to something you mentioned a few minutes ago, Jason, about the existing utilities. So we're in an area, we're laying a new water line, sewer line. There are already existing utilities there. So we're always having to work around things that were already in place, whether it's an electrical line or a cable line or another water line or sewer line, whatever the case may be, gas line. Talk about that a little bit. You touched on kind of what we do to help in that process, but I think that's so important in what we do on a day-to-day basis, and the effort that goes into that, I think is critically important that we talk about that.
Sure. So that's all in the pre-planning process, right? So when we have our project, we know where we're going to go. Obviously, we're going to call in an 811 locate ticket. And the locators will come out and they will paint everything that is known out there. But we go a step further here. We put together a subsurface utility engineering group that's kind of a subset of the conveyance systems group. And the SUE group basically will go out with a GPR, ground penetrating radar, scan every site, and then note on the ground with white paint, I found something here, whether it's marked or unmarked by a locating service. That will be followed by a vac truck or vac trailer where we'll soft dig down to that known point that we found. And at that point, we will GPS locate it and mark it so we can put it on the plans for our crews that are going out to that site and load it onto GPS units on excavators.
Yeah. So a lot of technology in what we do.
There's a lot of technology.
And, I'll give an example of, I think it was a job we're doing in Fayetteville right now, but we had probably a 30-foot run, and there were probably 12 different utilities crossing our line, our ditch. And it's really a true testament to the skill set our people have as far as being able to dig in that kind of condition.
Yes.
To the depth you've got to dig. And it's really incredible when you look at it.
It takes a full team effort too. So you've got the SUE group going out first and marking and locating up front. But then when the pipe crew comes through, you've got multiple people out there with shovels just trying to move the dirt around to get it out of the way. You have an excavator operator that's highly skilled to dig under or through these lines without hitting anything. And then you have pipe layers who's got to get the pipe through that whole woven challenge.
Yeah.
So it's something.
That's a good point. It is a team. It's a big team effort.
It is.
You're right.
And it's not to mention that you got to keep the guys safe. So you have to with your shoring, you have to get kind of creative with that.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good example. You're exactly right.
And the planning, right? You mentioned that earlier in one of your examples, Bill, about the plan that Jason developed, the schedule. So teamwork, safety, and the plan that you have to make sure everyone understands where they're going, when they're going there, to make that work seamlessly. So 3 key components that have come through in a lot of our conversation today.
We touched on this earlier, but I think it's important to revisit it. All the things we do are so critical to facilitating the growth in this area. All the areas we're working in are really all over North Carolina are growing exponentially. Everywhere you see this growth, they need the water, the sewer, all the utilities that everyone counts on and relies on. How does that make you feel that you're really building that foundation for people to come to this area and really for this area to thrive?
I think just to be a part of progress and to contribute just a small contribution to TA11's legacy, as far as, I can go over jobs in North Carolina, and I'll have my wife with me sometimes, and I'll just get nostalgic about like a job where I've laid pipe. So it's good stuff.
Well, I mean, just being from the Wilmington area and seeing the growth that's just around that one area, not to mention northeastern North Carolina and everywhere else. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see the growth. People don't necessarily think about the water and sewer needing to be there before they're there, but it's something that you have to have, and we're happy to do what we do.
So that is a good point. We've talked about kind of the history. We've talked about your dad. We've talked about the present. If you're thinking about the future and people don't know a lot of the work that we're doing, what do you want the people of the future, the next generation, to know about civil conveyance systems work?
I think it definitely is essential. It will always be needed. It's it can be like you can make it a lifetime career. This type of work is never going away. If they evolve and learn, they'll never have to look a job. They'll always have a job.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much everything people do in their home is touched by the work that we do, yet they don't think about it.
That's right.
And I think we've talked a lot about family and Bill's family's history here. What Bill does an exceptional job at is training our next generation. So a lot of our younger project engineers and field engineers work with Bill. So they're working from a foundation that Bill's laying now, and that's what's going to really help this company for many, many years to come. So I want to thank you, Bill, for that effort, because I know that takes a lot of time and patience at times, but it is really what we have to do for the next generation.
I appreciate that.
Well, I'm just going to echo on that just a little bit. During our strategic planning, part of that plan was to make sure that we always have someone tagged specifically with Bill. I learned, everything that I know from Bill. He didn't even know he was teaching me things when he was teaching me things. It's pretty incredible. But he has trained, a lot of our guys, and he's patient with them. He knows how to communicate. Everyone respects him. He's an awesome teacher.
Thank you for that, Jason.
Very welcome, Bill.
Do you have anything that you want to add in addition to what Bill said about what you want people to know in the future about this work?
I'll just echo on job security. You've got to have this critical infrastructure to maintain any sense of normalcy in your life, right? I think that TA Loving offers opportunity to so many different people. Just because you start in one position doesn't mean you're going to end up there. If you work hard and put in the effort, it's noticed here, and you, just like me, just like Bill and his father, you can climb right on up to wherever you want to be. You have the opportunity if you work hard.
You bring up another good point. So neither of you started in the positions that you're in. What was your path to where you are right now?
My path, I started as a project engineer, and I was luckily enough teamed up on the job with Bill and for a long time. And I worked my way up through project engineer to project manager and right on up to president.
Mm-hmm.
I started out like cleaning manholes and then started laying pipe with a crew, superintendent and senior superintendent.
I think you make a good point that you started out cleaning manholes. Oftentimes, regardless of the industry or the job, we have to start doing the dirty work or the thing that people don't want to do. And if we're not willing to do that harder work, that dirty work, that grueling work, it can really hold us back, because what you learned cleaning out those manholes probably really helped you move up into the other leadership roles.
That's right.
That's something we preach to all of the new guys coming in. You've got to experience it. If you want to be the leader, you need to understand how it works. So it's difficult to ask someone to do it if you haven't done it. So that experience gained in the field, in the trench, understanding how the parts and pieces work will be invaluable as you progress through your career.
Absolutely. You can speak to that as well, Ty, can't you?
Yeah, everything we're talking about is so critical, and to be able to work the workforce that you'll have to work as you progress in the company, you have to understand, and you have to be able to tell them what to do, how to do it, all those type of examples. And there's one way you learn it. You have to go do it at times, and it's such a key and critical part of what we do as we're progressing through our career. The other thing I wanted to mention, Jason, you touched on it, but the opportunities that we want for every employee here. And we want to provide them that opportunity. We want them to be in control of their career. And some of it's not much fun at times, but that's part of what it is. And you've got to understand that. But the opportunity that is available to each and every employee, I think, is so critical.
You bring up another good point. And so we talk about the opportunity for people to learn and grow. How do you identify who are the people for the next project manager position, for the next foreman position, for the next superintendent position?
I can go first. They identify themselves. So we don't have this magic wand saying you're going to be this and you're going to be that. The people who put in the effort, want to go the extra mile, want to learn, it happens organically. They're going to continue to be given more responsibility. They're going to continue to grow within that role, and then they'll be given more responsibility and go to the next role. So it happens organically, just like that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You said, if you want it, you're going to go and do it. So no, you don't have to wait around. You don't have to ask for it. You just start asking questions. You start taking advantage of opportunities. You show people that you're interested and capable.
That's right.
I totally agree with what Jason said. I mean, you can just tell the foremans they'll give this person more responsibility, and you can. It's just something you can tell that they're leadership material.
Yeah, I agree. It's they stand out. I mean, it all starts with a work ethic, and you've got to come in here with the willingness to work hard. This business is made up of people that work really hard at what they do. But what happens then is they start identifying themselves. You start identifying those folks, and then this company comes behind and starts to build them up with. We may supplement them with certain training. We may supplement them with different things along the way, putting them in those leadership roles so they can start exercising that ability, and it grows from there. And it goes back to what we said. It's a team effort. It takes a lot of people to build individuals up into the future leaders of this company.
Well, you don't have to come in knowing everything about everything. You can know nothing. And if you're willing to learn, there are hundreds of people here that will assist you in the learning process and progressing your career.
I think that's a good point too. Sometimes we are looking for people who have lesser experience because we are looking for someone who can come in and learn from that brain trust of people around them and all those years of experience, and learn to do things the TA loving way to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of our clients, to make sure that we're fulfilling the requirements of our core competencies, core values, to really make sure that people understand the way we do business here. And sometimes that can be a challenging transition if someone's got multiple years of experience living under someone else's core values that may be different from ours. Making that transition, even though they have all the skills, can be really challenging. Jason, Bill, thank you so much for being here with us today. I learned a lot, and I've had an opportunity to speak with you both before, so I'm certain this will be a good opportunity for others to learn about the work of Civil Conveyance Systems.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I just want to thank both of you for everything you do for this company. And it's much appreciated, and everywhere we work benefits from what you all do on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us what your current role is and what was your path to that role?
I am currently the general superintendent for the Conveyance Systems Group. My path to that, I started off at TA11 as a laborer and just worked my way up through what's now the older system, through foreman, superintendent, and then eventually a general superintendent.
When you think about that path, what stands out for you as a memorable experience to where you are now?
My foreman time was kind of unconventional compared to what you would typically think. I never ran a pipe crew necessarily. It was more of what we would call a project engineer or a field engineer role nowadays. When I made foreman, I was planning on going to Carolina Beach and running a service crew, and I got pulled, and I went up to Pender County to help out a superintendent that was running multiple smaller waterline jobs, real sub heavy, and just ended up running that job. Then kind of right into the fire there. You know?
Jumped right in
Yeah.
head first.
Yep, I had to learn some stuff on the fly, but it worked out pretty good for me.
All right.
Antonio, kind of the same question for you. What's been your path here? You started around 1999.
Got started with Derek Brock.
Okay.
I started up in Greensboro, working up under Joey Denny, doing a wastewater treatment plant. And I was a laborer. Then I came back to Goldsboro, started driving dump trucks.
Okay.
Left driving dump trucks, then I got with Wayne Munder on the electrical crew. And I got back on the pipe crew, then I just became a foreman.
Yeah, you've done a lot of different things. I think, that's a common denominator with all of us. We all started as a laborer here, and we've kind of progressed up from there. How does that kind of your path, your career path, how does that help you in leading the people you lead today?
It helped me a lot. For one person that helped me a lot was Dwight, because working with him, I learned from him a lot. Just work with your people a lot. And they need to ask questions, ask a lot of questions and stuff.
Yeah, it all gets down to people.
Right.
We've got to be good with people.
Right.
And because that's who helps us all get that work done. So that's a
It
really good
it's
point.
not you by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You just said it's all about people, and I think we talk about our people a lot. And every meeting that we have, there's a clear theme on our people and growing our people and supporting our people. And I think one of the things that we think about when we think about you, Antonio, is kind of the keeper of our people, right? You really stay in touch with and on top of your crew, the people around you. You're coaching and mentoring and guiding them, not just on the work that you're doing every day, but you're also kind of helping them through life, helping them make choices and decisions in their personal lives that help them be effective in the workplace. Because we know there's that bleed over, and you do a really good job of managing that.
Yeah, and I think that's what this company is all about. Is we're here to help people and provide opportunity and be there for them at work and not at work at times, to be there to just support them and be there as a resource.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that concern about our people is part of our culture. I want to ask you more specifically about the culture of civil conveyance systems. What stands out to you? What are the key indicators? What makes civil conveyance systems business unit different?
I think along those lines, we really emphasize that anybody can do whatever they want to do. Obviously you got to put the work in, but we pride ourselves on noticing those hard charging individuals and trying to get them to, meet their goals, whether that's a foreman, a superintendent, a project engineer, project manager. I think that's kind of what sets us apart, is we're really oriented towards making sure our people get where they want to go.
And Jason and Bill just talked about that a little while ago as well. So see that
it starts
theme.
at the top, and it starts with Jason, and it's it just goes downhill from there. I think we're all on the same page. I think that's what makes us a good leadership group. I think we all think fairly similar when it comes to stuff like that. And we don't just want guys out there just working to work. We want them, building something for themselves and for their families, to do better in life, not just manning a shovel.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that's unique about the work y'all do is a lot of our jobs, we show up at a job site. Like if you're on a plant job, you're going to be on a certain job site for a long period of time. Your job site's changing every day.
Every day.
You're dealing with a new owner from the perspective of new homeowners that you're working around, or the public that you're having to maneuver around one of our sites. And
Absolutely.
it's always changing, and the ability to pick up and move at the frequency you all have to move is really a skill set. And I think it's really incredible when you think about it that way. Then coupled with that is the safety aspect of it, how that's all changing all the time too, and how you have to be creative about how you maintain a safe environment for both the public and our employees.
Yeah, that's something I try to preach when I talk to the guys out there. You may think we're doing the same thing over and over and over every single day. And yes, it is repetitive, but like you're saying, the environment is always changing. It could be cables above your head one day and the next day it's gas lines in the ground. Which, I try to preach to them. You got to understand what's different every day and look out for that stuff.
Yeah,
It's not the same thing every day.
exactly.
Antonio, what else stands out for you about the culture of civil conveyance systems?
Basically, he answered it all. Seriously, it's just,
We have a nice mix too in our leadership group. We have some veterans, some guys that have been here, 20 plus, 30 plus in some cases years, and we have a lot of young, hungry individuals that are just coming in, and so it's a good balance. We got the experience, and we got these young guys that have some new ideas. Some ways to make stuff a little more efficient, or they're obviously a little more adept at using the newer technologies that are coming into the workspace. So we have a nice mix, and it really balances us out.
All the jobs we do are difficult. I think we all recognize that. We work in harsh conditions. We're working outside. It's hot. It's cold. It's a lot of things like that. How do you keep your workforce motivated and positive about, hey, it's 20 degrees and we're playing in the mud again? And it's, tell us a little bit about that.
mainly if you guys see you stand out there too, they'll do better if you stand out there with them. That's the main thing. If you sit in the truck, ain't nobody gonna get anything done. They're gonna look at you like, okay, we don't have to do anything neither. But if you're standing out there with them and working with them, you get more done.
So lead by example.
Right.
I mean, be out there in front.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good point.
You
That's
can't
great.
You can't sit in the air conditioning there in the heat, so you got to be out there with them.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
That's exactly what I would say. Lead
Okay.
by example. If they see that you're willing in your position to do what they're doing, then they're more apt to do it.
Yeah.
Really also goes back to what you were talking about, coaching, mentoring, training. It's hard to do those if you're not out there with them, right? So you got to be out there modeling it and then supporting them along the way. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of your favorite things. So when you think back over your career in civil conveyance systems, what's one or two favorite projects that stand out to you?
For me, it's probably a little unconventional because it wasn't a successful job in the terms of, monetary. But the second job I was ever on, Marquee Hills, it was a big gravity sewer job. I was pretty new, a year and a half here, I believe. We started the project out with a general superintendent, 2 superintendents, project manager, project engineer, 1 foreman, and 2 crew leaders.
Was Antonio the foreman?
He was the one foreman at the time out there. And, from my point of view, the company, or at least the pipe group, as we called it back then, not civil conveyance back then, the pipe group, was going through a bit of a tumultuous time. And all of a sudden we were losing. Here goes one superintendent, here goes another superintendent, project manager's gone. But the reason that I look back on that fondly is because that opened up a lot of opportunities, especially for me. Next man up, you step up, and I was able to learn a tremendous amount on that job. I worked with every pipe crew. I was well pointing, I was testing. At one point, I had to go back and figure out everything that needed to be cameraed because nobody knew, because it was all in one guy's brain that left. So it opened up a lot of opportunities for me to grow with the company. And then also, it's kind of a fond job for me because it was the job that I found out I was going to be promoted to foreman, which I was a little nervous about because I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time on a pipe crew. I was doing a lot of different stuff. But, and I've told them this before, but the best advice I'd probably ever gotten, we were on the laydown yard cutting some ductile iron pipe. And I think it was just me and Antonio out there. And I was like, man, they just told me I'm going to be a foreman. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And he just looked at me and he goes, man, just take whatever they're going to give you and figure it out. I was like,
Good strategy,
Okay.
Antonio.
yeah. So, I mean, for me, that was, even though I wouldn't consider it a successful job for the company. For me, it was a job where I grew a lot and learned a tremendous amount.
Yeah, that's a good point, the way you describe that, because, when you build a team and really build a cohesive team, it's typically during difficult times.
Mm-hmm.
And this company's celebrating our 100-year anniversary this year. And you think about words like perseverance and tenacity and reliability, things like that stand the test of time. And your example is perfect, because you've got to be ready, because when that opportunity presents itself, you've got to be ready to go. And then the company comes up under you and behind you, and we're there to support, whether it's training or whatever other services you need support on. It's the company's there, but you've got to be willing, and you've got to be ready, and you've got to be able, and that's a great example.
I also love that your first example aligns with what you talked about for the culture, right? Looking for the opportunity, taking advantage of the opportunity. It'd be so easy to be in a situation like that and fall into the pit of despair or negativity about this is all going wrong. They're expecting things of me that I'm not prepared for. I don't have the resources that I need. But you shifted your perspective to look at what is the opportunity here? How can I grow? How can I meet the expectations that are ahead of me?
Sort of. I was probably still a little naive too, and didn't really understand the full gravity of the way the job was going. I just knew that, hey, we need you to do this. Okay.
I mean, sometimes though, optimism can be seen as being naive, right? Because it's like, well, sure, I can do it. You don't know what the thing is I need to do, but I'm just going to go and do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that as well, because what you're talking about really is grit. It's regardless of what's in front of me, I'm going to find a way to get through it no matter what. And that grit is what propels us forward into the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing.
Yeah, I agree.
How about you, Antonio? What's a standout project for you?
The Kinston project. We work for a piece of galley and our 36-inch water line. We pulled the intake from the Neuse River. It was difficult, very difficult.
You're exactly right.
Yeah,
that was extremely difficult.
Right.
So what were your biggest takeaways from that challenging project?
Some of the screens in the river, yeah.
Yeah.
Said some of the screens in the river, that was the biggest thing. Yeah.
Well, working in the river is difficult to begin with.
Yeah, and terrible. You got the river, but then terrible soil conditions, plus extremely deep.
Yeah.
It was everything compounded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about soil conditions, because we asked Jason and Bill about their favorite and least favorite soil conditions. What are yours and why?
Running sand, because
Favorite or least?
that's my least favorite.
Okay.
It is hard to control, and if you've ever been in a trench when you're trying to lay a piece of pipe and you got running sand coming in every crevice of the box, and you are shoveling as fast as you can possibly shovel to keep that sand away from, that joint of pipe that you're trying to home up into. Those are rough conditions. That takes a lot, especially when it's 100 degrees outside and you're, 10 feet down in a metal box and you're just shoveling and shoveling and shoveling. That's
No one's standing up there with the fan blowing on you, are they?
you don't have AC down there. It's hot.
Same things, like right now in Beaufort, like you can dig 3 feet, you hit water. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah, those are tough conditions.
Yeah, but it really shows your skill set, and because we're good at doing difficult things.
Oh, we're very good at doing difficult things.
that few people can do.
Yep.
So I think it's very I think it's quite a compliment to you all what you do every day, and the knowledge you have about how to handle different situations.
Yeah. I haven't necessarily found too many areas that are good dirt that we ever really dig in. So it's hard to answer that question. I would have thought the rock in Fuquay would have been easier, but turns out when you blast rock right next to a creek, all the water just comes through the fissures, and you're still pumping a lot of water while you're digging out rock. So I don't know if I have a good one.
The same thing like Camp Lejeune. We was like 30-something foot deep, digging through rock. So
Yeah.
all you get was water.
Yeah.
You had like 6 pumps in the hole. That's labeled on the pipe.
Yeah, you're right. Another difficult job.
Right.
And where we work, chances are, if you do find a place where the dirt's really good, there's usually 7 or 8 other utilities in there that you're dealing with. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to bring that up. We were talking about that with Jason and Bill a minute ago. People don't have an appreciation. We're laying a sewer line 20 feet deep, and you've got all the existing utilities that we're trying to work around.
Yeah.
And it really takes a team effort to do that. We talked about our locate services, the technology that we've got available, the ground penetrating radar, all the things that we've got in place. Then it gets down to somebody that's having to operate an excavator through that maze of obstacles, and it's really impressive what we do every day.
And it's not getting any easier.
Yeah, but it kind of it ties into the growth and how what we do really supports the growth in all the areas we're working in right now. You think about how fast everything Wilmington's growing, or Raleigh, Fayetteville, all the areas we work in, and it gets down to people rely on the systems we put in place, so they are essential. How does that make you feel when you think about it from that perspective, that we're the ones facilitating a lot of the growth in this area?
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. And sometimes it's hard because, you're driving down the road with someone and you're like, oh, yeah, we built that sewer line that you can't see right there. But, it was really hard. It was 20 feet deep. So it was tough sometimes because we don't get to see, the finished product for us needs to look like we were never there,
Yeah, that's a good way to say that.
That's,
A lot of the things the company does, we've got the buildings that we build, a water plant, wastewater plant. You can see a lot of that, but the work we do from a water and sewer line work side of things it's all a manhole ring and cover.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's actually, if you can't tell that we're there, that's actually a good thing. So, yeah.
So you work on a lot of large scale projects, which means a lot of extra coordination. How do you achieve that?
Number one, communication. All forms of communication, and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Frequent meetings to schedule. A lot of our jobs, yes, we have our own in-house crews on there, but we also use a lot of subcontractor crews. They have one piece, we have one piece. A lot of times we're overlapping. So it's really a coordination effort to make sure that everybody knows exactly where they need to be and they need to stay on schedule. So it's just constant communicating. If an issue pops up, make sure everybody knows there's an issue. That's really the only way to do it. So a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, just constantly communicating.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier, the complexity and the whole logistical side, and having the right piece of equipment. You're always moving equipment and trying to get the right piece of equipment onto a certain job, getting the right people on a certain job.
Yeah,
it's really impressive when you think about all that.
Yeah, that's a major part of my job is high level scheduling to make sure that we have the right stuff on the job site in time, the right crews out there. Making sure the schedule makes sense. Are we doing everything in the correct sequence to make it as efficient as possible to get the job done? So,
What does that look like in your role, Antonio?
Making sure everything get done right.
All gets down to quality.
Right.
Quality and production.
You're
gets
exactly
done
right.
and on time.
Yeah, because it's redoing it's no fun.
No, it's not.
And that's a great point you make. When y'all think about the company, and I use the word opportunity a lot. How do y'all look at the company? What's a word that y'all use to describe the company? What it means to you?
I think the first thing that comes into my head is family.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time with everybody that we work with, typically more time than you spend with your own family. Everybody's always looking out for each other. Recently, I don't even know if recently, but we try to really emphasize, at least I feel like when I started, the culture was a little different. It was be at work no matter what, which puts a strain on your home life and your family life. And I think we've really tried to change that and, make sure that people, yes, we get the job done. We got to get the job done. There's no getting around that. But people got to be able to, to spend time with their families. So how can we build these jobs more efficiently to allow more time, for people to be at home, to have some free time, to get that break from being at work. And it's a stressful job. Construction is a very stressful job. So people need to have that time, to vent or to decompress and to spend time with their families. So, and I think this company does a really good job at understanding that and making sure that, family is a focus, not just work.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Antonio?
Same thing as I had an incident, a little small incident one time with my son, and I came back to work. They were like, "No, go back home and be with your family." So, very family oriented. So, I enjoy working here. So,
yeah, and I think we've got our families, but we've also got our TA11 family, and I think y'all both described how it takes a huge effort to take care of our TA11 family too, and how we're there to support them, because people are it's difficult. Yeah. And it's life. It's hard, and they need us there to support them. So I think great examples from both of y'all on that.
Those are good examples too of problem solving, right? We are in the people business and the problem solving business. Right. And you just talked about how do we solve some problems that some of our people are dealing with. Talk about other problems that you experience in the work of civil conveyance systems and how you solve or resolve those situations.
I mean, when you're on a job site, you're constantly running into unknown factors. You try to plan ahead of time, but you can't plan for everything. So the biggest thing for us is to identify those problems immediately and then start to come up with solutions and work with engineers and work with the owners to get the best outcome possible for both us and for them. We don't want to be taken advantage of, and we don't want to take advantage of our partners or our owners or the engineers. So it's all about identifying it fast, coming up with, efficient solutions to fix the problem quickly and get those solutions out to the owner so they can approve it, and then we can keep going. Because what we don't want to do is stop. Mm-hmm. When you're stopped, you're not making any money. You're not getting anything in the ground. You're not building the job. You're just waiting around. So we try to minimize that as much as possible, just by identifying and hopefully identifying the problem early before we even get to it, so we can have the solution ready to go.
And I think that's so critical to what we do, and it all ties back to the relationships we have in place with the owners and engineers we work with, because we have to identify the problem, but we're bringing a solution with it, and they value our opinion, and we're the ones that are going to fix it and build it, and I think they understand that, and it's good to be in that position. Yeah. Where you've got partners like that rely on us.
It's noteworthy that in your explanation, you talked about two of the core values. You talked about teamwork and client advocacy. And so we're always trying to ensure that we are making decisions based on those core values. And it's great to hear that those are things that we're talking about without intentionally trying to focus on them. So they are a strong part of our culture in everything that we're doing. What about you, Antonio? Tell us more about problem solving from your perspective.
Basically contacting someone. If I run into a problem, I contact either Adam or the project manager on the job and let them know what's going on, so we can get it corrected right then and there on the problem before going any further.
Yeah, teamwork again. Yeah. It's really important to get other ideas and perspectives on things, because we're going to come up with a better idea if we involve at least someone else. Our idea will be more one-dimensional if we do it alone. So the more feedback we can get involved, the better the solution is likely to be.
He usually has the solution to the problem. He's just contacted someone to let him know there is a problem. This is how it needs to be fixed, so that that person can get with the owner or engineer.
Everybody's got a part to play.
Yeah. He's already got the answer.
Yeah, he's got the answer, but you had to let somebody know because that's how it works. That's
Right.
good.
Not a one-man show.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about teamwork and the work that you do, what advice would you give somebody who is considering work in civil conveyance systems?
The same advice I give to every new person that starts here. Go out there, work hard. Don't be afraid to get in there and just do it. You know, you don't wait for someone to tell you. If you see someone working in the hole, go down there and help them out. Ask questions while you're down there if you don't know what you're doing, but get in there and start working, because that's the kind of stuff that gets noticed. I personally am always learn from doing anyway, so that's just how I am. I'm not going to learn just by standing up there and watching. So I feel like just work. Just get in there and work, and it will be noticed. And you'll pick up stuff faster. And the more stuff you pick up, the more responsibility will be given to you. We see you can handle this, then here's this, and now go do this too. You know, so that's I give that advice to every new person that starts here. Don't wait to be told to do anything. I mean, obviously, get the plan first, but you know, once you know what the plan is, you know, get in there. Don't be afraid to get in there and work.
Yeah, the law of proximity. The closer you are to something, the more you're going to know about it, for sure. What would you add to that, Antonio?
That's the same thing. Ask questions. Just ask questions. And you see somebody doing something, just help out.
Well, I think both of y'all do a great job of being teachers and really being a coach. That's kind of the way what I hear in the way y'all describe it, because that's what we have to be for the folks that are coming into our industry and all the people that work here. Is we have to be there and be a resource for them.
Yeah, that's how it was for me when I started here. So I just, you know, want to pass it on. You know, do the same thing that people did for me. I mean, I worked with every crew out here, and I learned something from every crew, every foreman, every superintendent. So I just try to do that for any new person that's coming in or anybody that has a question.
I think that's an important note too. You have a job that you're doing, and it's also important that you're out there engaging with everyone else and supporting as you need to, while also doing your job as well. Because every time you move up into another role, you're not just stepping away from what you did in the past, you're just adding on to your skills and responsibilities moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had a good conversation today about what you all do on a regular basis, how we build people up, how we're there to really facilitate the growth in this area. And, you know, I always refer to the jobs we do as being essential, or the quality of life type projects that we do on a regular basis. How does that make you feel when you think about how you're impacting this area in that way?
I look at it from more like a historical perspective. If you think, you know, way back, dirty water, you know, no sanitation, people were sick all the time because of that. So what we're providing is clean water, you know, good sanitation. Essentially, we're keeping people healthy, you know, at this point. Without that stuff, we'd be back in the, you know, the dark ages, you know, people getting cholera and stuff like that from drinking bad water. So that's how I look at it, that affecting that part of the quality of life, you know, trying to give people clean water and sanitary services that keep them safe, keep them healthy.
And, you know, and they'll be in place for many, many years. The systems we build will be in place long after we're gone.
Yep.
And that's another important thing that I think we need to emphasize, that it's a foundation is the way to look at it, and it's built for the long term.
Yes,
It's been great hearing from the two of you as well as Jason and Bill today. And there have been a lot of clear themes that have come through about structure and planning, teamwork, communication, people, development, opportunities. And so I just want to thank both of you for the work that you're doing out there every day to provide these opportunities to our employees and our future employees, and also to provide these services to all the communities in which we're working.
I want to thank you both again. I mean, you do an exceptional job, and just thank you all for spending time with us today and keeping people informed on what we do and or better informing them on what we do. So thank y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us today on our First Century. If you've got any questions or ideas you'd love to hear on the podcast, send them our way at podcast@taloving.com.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe so you can catch up on all the upcoming episodes. And you certainly will not want to miss part 2.
And remember, it's a great day to be in construction.